Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. Now, do we have that attitude that when we are looking into the eye of a child, a little child, that's where you lay the foundation. You should be thinking that at the bottom of those eyes, God is hiding. If you look at a child with that attitude, you're on your way with the strongest of anti-piracy measures, because that child knows to whom to turn, to who was looking at him. And the third we will be talking about is the question of discipline and discipleship in how we do the upbringing of a child as opposed to violence. We will not go into the debates that very often surround that issue, but we will be looking at how do we really make a distinction between violence and discipline. So, without further ado, I would like to ask Ms. Richelda Emanuel Rodriguez to make the first presentation on child abuse. And as she comes forward, I will just read one word that I think it's very important. Please, if anyone causes one of these little ones to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hang around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Stumble. Not even abuse, just stumble. Those are very, very strong words said over 2,000 years ago, and that still are more relevant than ever today, and that we need to take very seriously. Thank you.
I will be talking indeed about child abuse, but because of being the director of the Court of Guardianship, it is so that I would focus mainly on the intervention part of child abuse. And just for us to be on the same page, however, I will start with what is child abuse. So I'll have Carisha helping me out here. What is child abuse? And I'm going to say this definition is based on the Dutch law on youth care, and I freely translated it, so if it's not correct English or there are, that's why. Any form of threatening or violent interaction of physical, psychological, or sexual nature that a parent or another person from whom the minor is in a relationship of dependence actively or passively imposes on the minor, and that is causing physical or psychological harm or threatening to do so. We're going to break this down in the presentation, okay? So it's any form of threatening. So it starts, it's not that you committed it already, but even if the threat is there and it's a violent interaction, be it physical, so you actually harm the child, hit the child, or psychological, or what we do, I'm going to beat you with a belt if you don't listen to me. It's psychological or sexual nature, which I don't think I have to explain, but later on when we're talking about sexual, I'll go more in details on that too. That a parent or another person from whom the minor is in a relationship of dependence, and a minor is always in dependence of an adult, actively or passively imposes. So if you're the one doing it, or passively you were in the room, you saw, you did nothing, then you are also committing that crime against the minor, on a minor causing physical, psychological harm, or threatening to do so. So, forms of child abuse. that we maintain or use. We talk about neglect, physical abuse, psychological, which is emotional abuse, and also sexual abuse. Let's zoom into neglect. Neglect is a type of maltreatment related to the failure to provide basic needs, and that is based on age-appropriate care. Now, basic need, physical neglect, we call failure to provide food or shelter or lack of appropriate supervision. I can give examples. Not too long ago in the newspaper, you heard that mother had the children locked up in the house, nobody was there. Stories coming out that sometimes she does that more than 2 days. We had other situations, for instance, last year that a mother decides, okay, every time she leaves the children home, she has to go to work. They run away or she don't know where they're going to be. So she locks them up in the house with a padlock on the outside of the house, and the children are unattended. Now, in that case, it's also a threat that if fire breaks out in that house or anything else happens, they need care. Nobody can, they cannot get out of the house. So that would be also a situation that there is no appropriate supervision. Medical, failure to provide necessary medical and mental health treatment. We have those cases where the parents are somewhat in denial, for instance, of their children needing medical treatment and attention. They don't want to say, okay, my child has ADHD, or they don't want to indicate, okay, my child maybe has a syndrome of some sort. They're in denial for themselves, but they don't carry the children to get that attention that they need. But sometimes it goes as far as not wanting to give them the vaccination. Actually, that's one of the things that you're threatening the health of your child. Education, that is clear, and we have compulsory education here in St. Martin, so we have everything in place to deal with that. And emotional, we underestimate the emotional neglect. That is not giving the child attention when they have emotional needs, failure to provide psychological care, or permitting the child to use alcohol or drugs underage. And that is also something that we're seeing. Sometimes we think it's very cool to give our 10-year-old son a beer because it's carnival and it's, or 12, 13, even so. And, you know, let them use some drugs too because we're in a nice environment, you know, why not? And they say to you then, but I was there, so I was checking out if he's okay. And we think that is okay. Physical abuse. Physical child abuse or non-accidental child trauma refers to fractures or other signs of injury that occur when a child is hurt. It may involve hitting, not a litic, you know, hitting, shaking, throwing down, poisoning, burning, scalding, drowning, suffocating, or otherwise causing physical harm to a child. Or when a parent or caretaker fabricates the symptoms of or deliberately induces illness in a child. And how do you do that? People that force down food through the children's throat is an example. That the child vomits constantly. The hitting and the shaking and the throwing, it's something that happens on a daily basis. People do it. Children, maybe out of frustration, they hurry up and they grab the child and so on. And you would say we don't have on St. Martin really thing with throwing and poisoning of the children. I haven't had a case as yet about poisoning, but definitely shaking and throwing down and hitting and beating with a belt that goes so far that they don't only bleed, but they also, you can see their flesh, you know. So really hitting a child very hard. We'll come back to that in the discussion. I'm just going to go through the slides because the intention is that we have a discussion on this and that all sectors see what their roles can be when we are dealing with child abuse. Psychological emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is a persistent emotional maltreatment of a child, such as to cause severe and persistent adverse effects on the child's emotional development. So, child being convinced that they are unworthy, unloved, and inadequate. Something that people use a lot of times. They tell the child, "You're so stupid, you're dumb, okay? You're no good just like your father. You don't know how to keep a household just like your mother." You know, those kind of things. Constantly, constantly. And then sometimes we have self-fulfilling prophecy taking place by the children, that they really think that they are no good and that they can't do anything. And what happens then is a cycle. People don't realize that if you're telling a child constantly, you know, they can't, for instance, keep themselves good or present good, or they can't make good coffee. I love coffee, or good soup, or whatever, something like that. Then what happens? The child going to be so insecure that automatically that soup is not going to turn out good. The coffee is not going to taste good either. And then that reinforces, you see what I tell you? You're no good. You don't know how to do this. You're dumb. You can't study in school. And the child's so stressed out that they're going to fail that test. And when they fail that test, you see what I say? So then you have children that you have to actually need a very strong personality to say, because you say I'm going to fail that test, I'm going to make sure I make it. Because that's the other side. Sometimes it works like that too, by a child. Deliberately depriving a child of expressing their opinions, silencing, or ridiculing them. What a lot of times they would say, they would have children, we would have children in a family gathering and so on, and we would have a discussion on something, and the child said, "But no, that's not so. Actually, this is how the situation has to be." "How you know that? You shut up. No, anybody talking to you?" And then the child end up to actually have knowledge on that topic. If you didn't want the child to get into the conversation, then you shouldn't have that conversation in front of the child. Make sure the child is not in the room, or have that conversation elsewhere. Imposing inappropriate expectation on a child. So setting the bars actually too high. You know, some parents decide their child have to go straight from kindergarten to the university, you know, and not knowing that there are certain steps that you need to go to reach there. Having low expectations, being overprotective, not allowing the child to do anything at all. So you're not allowing the child to develop either. Direct or indirect exposure to physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, such as in the cases of domestic violence. Now I want to zoom into that. Believe it or not, a lot of times we as Caribbean people and as parents would have a heated discussion with each other. And for us, it's not an argument. But the child cannot make the link as to, you know, they're just talking. Especially persons that come from outside of the Caribbean region give that to us as feedback sometimes. But these people were arguing. "No, we're just talking, it's my friend." You know, and children cannot make that link. So they take over that mannerism of saying, "Boy, I tell you, this and that, and I'm going up in your face," and you're not aggressive. It's my best friend. You understand? We do that also with cases, it was mentioned yesterday, where parents have arguments with each other and there is aggression taking place. So physically beating up each other in front of the children. And again, this is not something that only the father beats up the mother. We have cases where the mother is beating up on the father in front of the children, okay? And then the children learn as that is a normal way of communicating when you don't get what you want. So that they actually, sometimes parents express themselves as saying, "But I tell you to do it, you didn't do it, that's why I had to give you a slap." You understand? And the parents communicate so with their friends on the playground at school, because they would say, "If you don't do what I want, I give you a slap and be best friends after." Niels, I think it was the person said it yesterday. And then you see the parents all coochie-coochie, loving up each other and so on. But the children didn't know what happened in the process. Sometimes the children say, "Go outside, go play." And they make up with each other inside there, and the children don't know what happened. So they think, you know, they don't know the process that took place. You know, "I was sorry, I didn't have to do so." they miss out on that. So they would not learn how to resolve problems. Sexual abuse. All sexual acts with a child. Exposing, forcing a child to be subjected to abuse or allowing a third person to force a child to inappropriate sexual acts. Assaulting by penetration, so rape or oral sex. Non-penetrative acts, masturbating, kissing, rubbing, touching outside of clothing. And non-contact activities involving children in looking at or in the production of sexual images, watching sexual activities, encouraging children to behave in sexually inappropriate ways, or grooming a child in preparation for abuse, including via internet. Now, we have all of these on St. Martin. We allow our children to look at inappropriate sexual acts on television. We also have situations where in this case, it was a mother and a stepfather would lock a daughter up in the room, and they would not have sexual interaction with her, but make her look at them having sex. That's child abuse, okay? We have situations where persons will say, but I just wanted to pleasure myself, so I watched her bathe and masturbate at that point in time. It's non-penetrative act, but it's child abuse. Okay, kissing and rubbing a child. I'm saying this because we like to sugarcoat things, and the idea today is to just put it out there so you know this is happening on St. Martin, right? I finger the leg girl a little bit, so what's the problem? I'm penetrator, nothing happened. Child abuse. Okay? Everybody went silent. Yeah, but these are things that happens on St. Martin. So stages that we can have with child abuse, we can talk about prevention. That's what we need to do, prevent. We can have intervention and aftercare. The Court of Guardianship is a child protection agency that is from 1970. It came into being under the former Netherlands Antilles. Our tasks are embedded in the family law of persons, Book 1 in Civil Code. So our protection tasks. Now, I mentioned only 3 articles, but you would see that in the Civil Code, specifically on some articles within the Civil Code, it indicates what the role of the Court of Guardianship is or what the Court of Guardianship can do. But I'd like to indicate 238 says there is a child protection, the Child Care and Protection Board. So we're adhering to that by having the Court of Guardianship. And the other one says, may act on behalf of minors who have their residency or last residency or their actual abode. Meaning, we don't ask which color of eyes do you have, we don't ask the color of your skin, we don't ask if you're legal, illegal, none of those things. For the Court of Guardianship, once you're here on this island, you fall under, let's say, the responsibility or the authority of the Court of Guardianship. Also, in cases of children that were last here and then sent somewhere else, for instance, we have cases of abduction children, or that they send the children on vacation to St. Kitts or France by a family member and they don't want to send them back. The child is still the responsibility of the Court of Guardianship to also go through that process of making sure the child is safe in any case. And the other one I want to point out is since January 9th, 2014, the Court of Guardianship, with the addition in the Civil Code, is also the Central Reporting Center on Child Abuse. We'll zoom into that. And we work with the Convention of the Rights of the Child. The convention is from 1959. The Dutch Kingdom was signatory to it in 1990, and the Netherlands Antilles since 98, and we took that over as from then also for St. Martin, and as country St. Martin, we are upholding the Convention of the Rights of the Child. So these are the guidelines for us at the Court of Guardianship when we are functioning. So every time we would go back to what does the Civil Code say and what does the Convention say. Let's zoom into the Code, Article 243. And it says, I have it here, it's a Landsverordening. The Court of Guardianship maintains a central reporting center on child abuse. Now, so from January 2014, we have to adhere to this. We've been starting to do that manually. And then as of November 2014, we receive an automated system. We're still plugging in the information in the system. But we are the central reporting center, and I'll come back to the challenges later. And it says the reporting is anonymous unless, and then it says, in the cases that we need to inform other authorities, or if the child is in a situation that it's a crisis and intervention is needed, it's all in the Lunsford Ordering, the details and the civil code as to when can we deviate from that being anonymous. For instance, if the situation reaches court and we really need somebody to how to say, give account of what they saw, it is possible that we can approach you and ask, can you please help us out with this case? Yeah? Exception to duty of confidentiality, and that goes towards the doctor, towards the police, towards other organization. Last, we had a situation where we asked the school for information, and the school went, but I can't give you that information. You have to go by my school board. Write a letter to the school board, you know. And so who indicates that I have to give you that information, and then we can actually prove based on the civil code of St. Martin that you need to disclose that information to us, so for us to be able to carry out our job. And reporting code must be set for professionals. Now, we'll come back to that later. So when you look at the Code of Guardianship's task, we have to register all abuse. We would advise on, and that's Article 243A. It stipulates all of these points with elucidation. We have to advise, so somebody can just call us and say, you know, that happening, what do you think I should do? And then we can indicate, okay, these are the way we go. We can investigate from the moment that we get a report and it is clear that we need to know more of what is going on. We have the authority to actually investigate the case from a protection side. So we are not the police. We're not going to investigate from, let's say, if it was a criminal act or none of those things. Our investigation focuses on the protection of the child, taking out the child out of that situation. And we have to inform relevant judicial authorities, which is most of the time the police. We can execute intervention measures, and based on the book 1 from the Civil Code, Article 254 already gave the Court of Guardianship the authority if we see that the children are in any kind of situation where their mental, physical, or their well-being is being jeopardized, that we can do an intervention. We can give a warning, for instance, mothers or fathers that beat the children a little too hard, and you know, they explain we were stressed out, this and that, and we talk to them, and it's not so severe, we give a warning letter. But we can also request the judge or the part prosecutor, the youth part prosecutor is here, for a protective measure. That's in the law. So if we find a situation based on a phone call from a school, for instance, or a neighbor, and we reach to the place and it is of such that we really need to act at that point in time, we can do two things. We can either ask the part prosecutor for toevertrouwen, what is it in thing, to entrust the child to us, or we can ask the judge also for a protective measure, so a temporary custody, and in that we would then overrule the authority of the parents, the parental authority, and when we can act on behalf of the child, especially in cases where the parents are the suspects. We would do something like that because then we would overrule the authority of the parents at that point in time and would be able to physically also remove the child from the household. And we can refer for guidance. And we can press charges. When do we press charges? Now, officially it is that the parents are the ones responsible for the minor. So if it's a third person, not the parents or family member, we would refer the parents to the police, make an appointment with the police for them to press charges. Now, believe me, we have a lot of cases where we have to convince parents that know that the child has been abused to press charges. And what kind of argument do they give? Yeah, we don't want to go through all of that, man. That was bad enough what happened to her, you know, just leave it. This community too small, everybody gonna know the business. Leave it. But that's, you know, that's against the rights of that child also. And at that point in time, the parents' right to keep things hush-hush in the community, for that parent overrules the necessity of seeking justice for their child, you know. And Article 250 of the Civil Code also indicates that in those cases where the best interest or of the parent is in contradiction or overrules that of the child, that the court of guardianship can step in and act on behalf of the child, you know. And so we do that in those cases. Or if the parents are the culprits, then we press charges against the parents in extreme cases. I started in March 2013 by the Court of Guardianship, and I think the first case that I pressed charges against somebody was a month later or so, right? Because the situation was so extreme, the child was beaten literally into the hospital, and this is something that happens a long time. So if we're talking about child abuse, the hitting, and they say, okay, put the child to kneel down on concrete blocks and sit there, or in the sun, throwing salt in the wounds, putting hand in a pot of boiling eggs to hold the eggs, to got the eggs, hold the eggs until you tell the truth. Whatever you want to hear, I will tell you, because, hello, you know, those things happen. So this is the process that we use now, the flow. We can get a report, it's still in Dutch, but we can get a report from the police, the student support services, the schools, the Martin Medical Center, general public. When it comes in, we do an intake. And then we decide if it's a crisis, if we should continue or not. Okay? If when we got the call, it seems not to be something that it's real, somebody make up the story, then we just archive it. If not, we continue. Then we would have a discussion between the social worker and myself, and sometimes the case is such that we will have more social workers to discuss what's happening, and then we decide if we're going to just warn or that we're going to do an intervention. And we can do two things at the same time. We can do the press the charges or look for a protective measure. Then you'll have a family guardian, and you can be placed out of your home setting if it's necessary. We also monitor after we give the police information, and we will give guidance at home, not us by the court of guardianship, but the family guardian. And here, once we get the intake, once the thing comes in, actually this arrow have to go the other side, we have to decide right away, is this a crisis or not? And when the child's life is in danger, or if the child should remain there even though that we know the situation, and we feel the child will be in danger, then we go into a crisis situation, and we can we inform the police, we can go to the park prosecutor office, or we can go to the judge, and we can remove the child, and then we continue the whole investigation.